Hello, my friend. Have you ever heard the saying that a wealthy man has many concerns, but a hungry man has only one? Fyodor Dostoevsky, the great literary giant and the author of the book Crime and Punishment, had a rather unique ritual to get things done. Whenever he became comfortable off of his professional success, he deliberately gambled away all of his money. Suddenly, without all of the trappings of wealth, his purpose became clear and it once again materialized. He was forced into this position where he needed to write, he needed to produce great works of literature, or to starve. Very interestingly enough, Dostoevsky wrote a novel called The Gambler in just 26 days to pay off a gambling debt. I had unknowingly stumbled upon this gambler's secret when I was only 13 years old. In 7th grade, I had underperformed in public school, and my parents sent me to a boarding school, the Army and Navy Academy, and each night we were subjected to this mandatory quiet time study period for about 2 or 3 hours. And I spent most of those evenings, as did many of my peers, goofing off, playing StarCraft, and so forth. Then the next day, during lunch, I would eat as quickly as possible and spend that hour rushing back to my room and typing up my English essays just before my afternoon class. I wrote far faster and far better during those, during that maybe 30-minute window after I eat my lunch than I ever would have during the previous night's 2-hour study period. And guess what? I got an A on every single essay. I was at the top of my class, and for the first time in my life, I had a 4.0 GPA. I also made the honor roll. And it wasn't until later on in life that I realized and could appreciate what exactly was taking place. And so what I do is I develop the habit and the practice of taking as little time as necessary or as possible to do things by setting deliberate time constraints. And a time constraint is simply how we narrow down the window of time that we have to do specific things. Now, I don't consider myself super disciplined, but I do kind of train myself to develop this habit. So for example, I don't purchase memberships at places like co-working spaces or gyms. If I had a monthly membership for a co-working space or even a daily pass, the incentive would be on me to get as much use out of that time as possible, get as much use out of that membership as possible. And with an indefinite abundance of time, my perception of time would slow down. I would instinctively fill up that time with all kinds of things. You have space, you want to fill it with stuff. And that would force me to kind of relax, and my priorities wouldn't seem as big priorities because I have more time to do them. And so I would naturally take longer to do things that I could do much faster. And, filling up my to-do list with a whole bunch of things that are not really that important because of that perceived abundance of time. But if I can create a false scarcity of time by training myself to operate this way, by making it a habit, because I'm obviously not disciplined enough to force myself into it, but training myself to be this way by default, it normalizes getting things done faster. So if I think about it, if I'm a freelancer, such as a graphic designer, the more hours that I bill a client, the more that I get paid. So taking longer to do the work equals getting paid more. But if I am a business owner who needs to create a design, there is no incentive to take as long as possible. It's actually the opposite. I want to get the task done as quickly as possible with a good result. And so it's kind of like thinking of the two opposite lenses of a telescope. We need to make sure that we are looking through the right end of the telescope always. So now that we understand the importance and the power of creating time constraints, let me give you a few real-world examples so that you can start to create these for yourself. Last year, I read in a scientific study that when we exercise for longer than 30 minutes, the brain starts to produce cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. So after 30 minutes, the workout becomes more difficult, we become less focused, and stress starts to enter our bodies the longer that the workout wears on. And so I developed the habit of doing all of my workouts in 30 minutes or less. Sometimes I might take 40 minutes, 45 minutes if it's the weekend, but I'm well aware of what's happening there. Long-term travel forced me to create time constraints just by its very nature. I quickly found that the nature of long-term travel and the digital nomad life is such that you have far less time to get work done. You throw out the 9-to-5 work schedule away immediately because it's not practical. You can't adapt to the conditions, the new conditions that you have around you. When I lived at home in California, there were so many different things that I took for granted. But in a new country or a new city such as this, where I don't know where to get a haircut, or I don't know where to go shopping for clothes, or I don't know where to get my computer repaired, all of these things that I took for granted before suddenly can take 10 times longer to accomplish. And of course, if I'm continuously traveling, I'm often on the road or in the air, moving from place to place. And the actual time that I have to sit down and, devote myself to work matters is far less. I need to figure out how I can get the most important things done in 1, 2, or 3 hours, and not fill up my time with a whole bunch of trivial things. If I go back to suburban California and I have a car to drive around, suddenly I'll be, driving around all these places that I probably don't even need to go. I might drive 15 minutes just to get a smoothie, right? But if I'm here on foot, I'll make sure to go to the places that I need to go and go out less often. And so, from this lifestyle of traveling and so forth and being in new places and trying to narrow things down to the essential, I had to force myself to learn how to get all the highest value activities done in a shorter window of time. There's always a sense of urgency. This apartment where I am recording this course, I have rented it for 2 weeks. And I've made it my utmost priority to complete this entire course within that 2-week window. And because I have this time constraint, because I have this sense of urgency, I was able to get the 80 to 90% of the course done that I wanted to in only 1 week. And this is all because I have trained myself to work within these time constraints. It's become my natural form of doing things, my natural way of doing things. I've normalized it. If I had rented this apartment for, say, 2 months, maybe it would have taken me 2 months to make this course instead of 2 weeks. Perhaps without me realizing it or not, I would have likely filled up that time by putting all these things on my to-do list, all kinds of different things which were not my utmost priority. And so that brings me back to the quote at the beginning of this lesson, and it is the reason why a wealthy man has many concerns and a hungry man has only one concern, or at least one concern to really focus on. So what I want your homework to be after you watch this lesson is to take a good hard look at things that you spend a lot of time doing. So if you spend 90 minutes at the gym on a typical workout, how can you constrain that workout to a higher intensity workout and get it done in only 45 minutes and make that a routine? And it can be anything in your life. It doesn't just have to be workouts. Can you condense a 60-minute Zoom call, all of your 60-minute Zoom calls, into 30 minutes, 30-minute calls? So take a good hard look and start taking these actions, and soon you'll be able to see the value in short, intense, focused action where you don't fill up your time with a whole bunch of minutia, unnecessary things, just to fill that abundance of time. So that's it for this lesson. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.